about the business side of the medical universe, all right? How many people, by a show of hands, know what they want to do after high school? All right? How many people have no clue what they want to do after high school? Anybody? Don't be ashamed, because when I graduated high school, my thing was, I'm never working in medicine. I hate medicine. Everybody they knew that had to do with medicine, they looked miserable. I'm never doing it. But my first year out of high school, the only job I could find was as a stock person at the local hospital, learning about medical supplies. And I slowly worked my way up from medical supplies to a monitor tech doing EKGs, to being an EMT in the ER, to finally doing nursing school and beyond. So you never know where life's going to take you in a journey. I never thought I would be a business owner. I mean, I've owned 3, counting 4 businesses as of next month that we're opening. So yeah. So I'm a single father. Never planned on that one either. But you know, life throws you curveballs. A little bit we're going to talk about today is how I kind of went from the nursing aspect and the medical aspect to becoming a business leader. As she said, my grandparents needed home health care. I looked around and could not find anybody that would give us the care that we really deserved from my grandparents. You know, it's easy to find somebody to show up and do the bare minimum, but there's nobody that would treat my grandmother or my grandfather the way I would treat them. And so that's when the business idea started to say, well, why don't we form our own business where we can provide that care to people? So we opened Hummingbird Care Services. It's a home health agency. We're located in Vero Beach, Florida, but we serve from Vero Beach, Indian River County, all the way down to Palm Beach County. So we have the whole Area 9, as it's called, for home health services. We are private pay only, so a lot of our clients are the beach folk, as a lot of people like to say. But we have slowly trickled in and saw a need for those who are not independently wealthy. So from that, we said, okay, look, there's another business idea. So we started a nonprofit that a percentage of the care that people pay for under Hummingbird Care Services is donated to the nonprofit, which then turns around and pays for care for those who are less fortunate and those in need. As part of that, I noticed my Uber bill and my bill for paying for transportation for my patients was ever increasing because, as you may know, many of the elderly shouldn't be driving or can't drive. So as we saw this need, we said, hey, there's another area that we could be serving. You know, instead of throwing somebody an Uber and saying, see you later, and then we have to pay another company, why don't we do that ourselves? So another business we opened was called an NEMT business, or a non-emergency medical transport business, which is called Foxglove Transport Services, which is my other business. So there's 3 of them. And in a completely separate non-medical arena is I am a licensed esthetician. Part of my journey of trying to avoid the medical field was getting my esthetician's license. So we also do esthetician, makeup services, eyebrows, waxing, and so on, especially for people with cancer or people with terminal illnesses, to make them feel like they are just as beautiful as they always have been. So those are kind of my 4 business areas. Did I ever think I was going to get into any of these? No. Especially when I went to nursing school, I said, I'm going to be the best ER nurse you're ever going to meet. I became a certified emergency nurse. I got trauma certified. I got every certification you could think of. And after working a year in ER, I said, this is the worst thing that I ever could have done with my life. And I took a step back and said, what do I really want to do? What is my frustration with ER nursing? So then I found ICU nursing. ICU nursing gives you that more personal touch to your patient. You can look more at the science behind what's going on with your patient. You don't have, in ER, it's more about time. It's stabilize, treat them and street them, or stabilize and send them upstairs. But When I found the ICU, I said, wow, I can really learn, like, why are we doing all these things? It's not just an algorithm. We're not just stabilizing it and sending upstairs. Why are we doing, what are we doing? So what I like to tell a lot of my younger folks, my son is 16, he's in high school as well, he's going through the same questions and concerns you guys are having. Don't cornhole yourself into a specific thing. Say, I'm going to be this. If that's what you want to be, then cool. But also keep your mind open to other possibilities. I see so many of my friends that I went to high school with, which they all said, I'm going to be a doctor. And then they turned out to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a nurse. And then they turned out to be a business executive. So don't cornhole yourself into one specific thing. With that being said, I think going into the medical field in hindsight is probably one of the best things you can do. It's one of the few fields where you don't have to search for a job. They will ask you. They say, we need nurses, we need CNAs, we need EKG techs, we need EMTs, right? So you'll never be without a job, which is awesome. So even if it's as a starting point, to give yourself, I want to give a good foundation to my life and say I always have something to fall back onto or whatever. Starting from the ground floor and saying I'm going to learn how to be a CNA or an EKG tech or an EMT and get my basis of knowledge and then build from there. But I'm going to keep my mind open to what's available to me. Does anybody in here want to do something in the business side of medicine? Anybody? No? That's typically how it goes. A lot of you probably, I think, I did look up the statistics recently, but if every single one of you were to go into the medical field, it probably 30% of you will end up in the non-patient care business side of the medical field. And the reason that is because people who are only business trained have no clue what it takes to take care of a patient. So then they come into a hospital and they say, well, why do you need these supplies? And they have no clue. So then you run into problems where there's a barrier in between patient care and administration where you can't provide the care that you need to do because of cost savings from the hospital side, et cetera. So once you build into that nursing role or whatever role you go into in the medicine field, again, keep your eyes open because there may be a managerial job that opens up that you say, hey, let's try that out for a little bit. Take a step back from the, wiping behinds for a little bit and go back into the, business side of things. See how I like it, okay? Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've covered so far? I see a lot of typing and a lot of confused faces, so did I go too fast? No? Okay, good. All right, what do we want to talk about next?
What were some of the roadblocks that you faced?
Roadblocks. So, getting started into business, I had no idea when I opened up my first business, things like payroll taxes and laws regarding, which insurances I needed. And, these are all business things that, if you go take a business course, you'll learn all those things. But in medicine, we don't learn any of that. So it was a real struggle for me to sit down and learn, like, I need workers' comp insurance. How much is that going to cost? And then it actually opens your mind to say, when you go to a doctor and you say, get your doctor's bill and it's $250 and you're like, holy cow, that's a lot of money. But then you don't realize you're paying for not just the doctor, you're paying for the facility that you were seen in, you were paid for all the supplies, the insurance for all the people that like to sue. You're paying for the nurses, the CNAs, the housekeeping. Every little thing is built into that piece of what you're paying for. So learning the other side, the business side, was definitely a struggle for me. I definitely did things wrong in the beginning and tried to follow the advice of people who, which is a good point to bring up. When you're starting in any field, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people willing to give you advice. The best thing I can tell you to do is look at that person as a whole If somebody is driving a car from 2005 and it's a hoopty and they live at their parents' house, it's probably not a good idea to take business advice from them. If somebody's driving a Rolls Royce, maybe listen to them. Maybe they've done some things right. So as you approach your life and your decisions you're making, always take time to stop and take a step back and evaluate the information you're receiving. Filter out the stuff that might be, we see on TikTok and we see on YouTube from people who are not genuine in the advice that they're offering. A lot of people like to just spout information that they've heard secondhand or things like that, and a lot of it is definitely not true. What else?
So are you a one-man show? Do you have a team under you? How do you manage all of these different businesses?
So if any of you are ever going to become a nurse, you will quickly become very OCD and very protective of everything that you do. Because as a medical provider, even if you're an EMT, paramedic, whatever it may be, you do have to operate as a team, but you are solely responsible for the life of the person you're caring for. So if I'm saying, oh, Mary gave that medication, I don't have to worry about it. Well, what if she didn't? I'm responsible. What if she gave the wrong medication? I'm responsible, So you learn to kind of do everything yourself, and it's really hard to let go of tasks. And that's where, when you get to nursing, we learn about delegation, but you're still responsible for the things you delegate. As a business owner, it's the same struggles. In the beginning, it was very hard for me to say, I'm gonna hire in a manager, because I literally am crying myself to sleep because I have too many things on my plate. So I'm gonna hire in this manager. Are they gonna do it the same way I would do it? Are they going to follow the laws? If they don't follow the laws, who's responsible? I am. So definitely taking a step back and making sure you're hiring the right team underneath you is very important. Who you hire under you is an extension of your business and of you. So if I'm sending out a caregiver to somebody's home and they show up and they're poorly dressed, their attitude is not aligned with the business, then how does that look on me, right? How is that client going to talk about me and my business in the community, all right? The worst thing that would happen to that employee was maybe they lose their job. They go, oh, well, I don't need this job, and they go to a different job. But now my reputation as a caregiver in the community has been soiled. So being very selective when you're bringing people underneath you is important. Right now, I have about 95 people that work for me. So as we've grown as a business and businesses, it's definitely become a struggle to slowly let things go and say, okay, I can no longer interview every person that comes into this company. I have to trust the person that I hired to do the interviewing to do that job correctly. It's definitely a struggle. But if you are having the right checks and balances, one thing that I do as a business owner that a lot of people don't do that I see in the community is I will still go out to a client's home and just show up unannounced to make sure that the caregiver is giving care that I would give. Make sure that they're dressed appropriately. Make sure that they're treating the client appropriately. I try to do something special for all my clients. Whoever comes in under me as a client, they fill out a form and everybody thinks it's stupid and they go, oh, what's your favorite ice cream? What's your favorite flower? What's your favorite color, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when I show up at your house and I have your favorite Haagen-Dazs, vanilla ice cream, doesn't seem like a big deal to you saying it right now, but to a client, to a 90-year-old lady who's been living alone for the last 15 years, it means the world. So little things like that mean a lot to other people. As we grow, you guys are in life, a section of life called the transitional section, okay? You're going into where you're gonna be adults and responsible for yourself, and in about, how old are you guys? 17, 16, around that area. So give it another 5 years and you're gonna meet a time in your life where you're gonna go, oh, look at me, I'm an adult, I know things, and that's when you're the most dangerous. Coming from somebody with experience, because you get enough knowledge to think you know what you're doing, but you have just enough knowledge to hurt yourself. So with that, it is an important part of your life going from here on forward to find a mentor, all right? I personally have 3 people under me that intern with me at 2 of my jobs. I do leadership classes at the hospital that I work at. Finding somebody who is experienced and can lead you in the right direction in life, even if you feel like, oh no, I got it on my own. Having somebody to bounce ideas off of, talk to a teacher, talk to a family friend who is in the general area that you want to go in life. You know, finding that person is important, because without it, when you are stuck in the mud, you're gonna have nobody to turn to. And a lot of people say, oh no, I have my parents. Well, if your parents, like my mom, and my mom is in education, she barely knows what a blood pressure is. So when I'm trying to tell her about my frustrations at work because some situation happened, she has no clue how to give me advice. But by me finding a friend who was a physician, who is older than me and has been through it all, I can say, hey, this is the frustration I'm having. And they go, okay, well, this is what I would have done in this situation. And then you can bounce ideas off of them. And then you also don't get a lecture from mom and dad about, you know, well, you should have done this, you know? Is there any other?
Yeah, so how do you market your business, right? So it sounds like you have a really good, you know, you care a lot about the patients, but how do you promote that? How do you get it out there?
Sure. Marketing is a beast in its own. In the beginning, when you first start your business, marketing is you. Typically, people don't start a business with multiple employees. Typically, you're doing it all yourself. When I started my home health agency, it was me answering the phones, me providing the care, me doing all the back office, payroll, everything, taxes, all that, all by myself. When it came to marketing, you are the face of your business. So showing up in person, going into doctors' offices and saying, hey, I'm here, I'm in the community, this is what we represent. You're gonna get the door slammed in your face probably 9 times out of 10, because a lot of people don't want to hear sales pitches. But it only takes that one time that they're willing to listen to you. And out of those 1 times that people are willing to listen to you, you might get 10% of them that actually sign up as clients, okay? But that one little fraction of percentage of the people who actually come under you and say, you know what, I'm gonna trust this guy, I'm gonna refer a client to him or whatever. It just takes one time, and then that person will say, hey, if you need help, call this person. And then that grows exponentially. They tell 2 people, and then those 2 people tell 2 people. But keeping in mind that the same thing happens with bad news. How many times do people, if you guys were out in the community and you went to a restaurant and you had a good meal and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna leave them a good review. People don't typically do that, right? They just kind of like, oh yeah, it was really good. How many times have you gone somewhere and something bad happened and you're like, I'm telling everyone. I'm gonna tell all, Google, Yelp, everything, because I'm mad, all right? Everybody's done that before? Or at least I have. So that's what happens in the community. So it takes one time of something bad happening and everybody knows about it. But all the good things that happen, it's so hard to get that information out. So starting off, definitely get out in person, talk to people, tell them about your mission, tell them about your, what you're trying to do in the community. Once you start a small amount of growth, then you get into the paying for Facebook ads and paying for Google ads and getting your name out to the community. There will reach a time though that you no longer have to do that. That time for us has happened probably within the last 6 months. I no longer pay for any advertising in the community because there's so much word of mouth of people saying like, oh no, you need to call this company because they treated us right. So marketing is definitely an uphill battle, but once you reach that peak, it's kind of all smooth sailing from there. But that's with Hummingbird Care Services, with my home health agency. As we've started our other 2 agencies, our other 2 businesses, we haven't had as much traction, so we do have to start those from the beginning. Me going out and saying, hey, we have this new transport system in the community. I know you guys are so used to using this one transport system, but maybe give us a try. And out of the hundreds of times people have slammed doors in my face, we've actually gotten a few people that said, yeah, we'll try it out. So the process begins over and over and over again as you grow within the community.
Do you use social media as part of marketing? Are you?
Social media is a great tool to use. It can suck you dry of money so fast. It is so expensive. Who here has ever Googled something at all? I want to find a business. So you've Googled shoe repair near me or anything. Anybody? Should be every person in here, right? Did you know every time you click on one of those ads, it costs that business about $30 to $40? Did you know that? It's called a pay-per-click. So when you open up Google and you search dentist near me, I say, oh, let me look at this one. Oop, that's 40 bucks. Nah, I don't like that one. Next one. Oh, oop, that's 40 bucks. So now you guys understand why Google has so much money, because they bleed it out of every single business owner within the community. But part of that is when you guys click on that lead, it tells us who's clicking. So I can specifically advertise. I want to advertise to people 18 to 24 with this income level, with this location, with that likes teddy bears or whatever. You can pick anything. And it will find you in the community and advertise just to you. There's also this thing called affiliate marketing. Has anybody heard the trend recently where they think your phone's listening to you? It's actually not your phone listening to you. If your best friend Googles Honda Civic, it knows that you're friends with that person and will advertise Honda Civics to you, because then you'll talk about Honda Civics to your friend. All right? So that's called affiliate marketing, which is even more expensive. So it can get very, very expensive very quickly. If anybody ever wants to try it out, go onto your own personal Facebook ad. You can see how much it is to advertise. It's usually for a personal account, probably 40 bucks, and you can get in front of about 1,500 people. All right? When you get to a business level, to get in front of 1,500 people costs about 100 bucks, and then it goes up from there. 1,500 people may seem like a lot of people, but that's just people scrolling through Facebook, so you actually want those clicks. All right? What about, do you have any other?
Do you have any success stories with your business you'd like to share?
Success stories. Well, so with Hummingbird Care Services, one success story, so as you guys may know, anything with the medical field, we are covered under this thing called HIPAA, so we can't talk specifics about anything to protect the patient privacy. But we can generalize and tell you stories about things that have happened. So one instance that comes to mind about success stories under Hummingbird Care Services is we had a lady who reached out to us who was in her mid-90s. She has no children, she has no family, she has no friends, she has lived alone for the last 15 years, and she was having trouble with mobility, getting her to her doctor's appointments, getting a shower every day, what we call the activities of daily living. So she called us and was just, you could tell she's frustrated. I said, I've lived alone, I've done everything on my own, and I think I need help. And I'm like, well, you're 95, yes, you do. So we went out to the home. I thought I had to wear a hazmat suit when I went into that house because it was just horrible. So most, from the report of this person, she has had 3 or 4 other agencies come out to the house and they wouldn't even enter the home because it was so gross that they didn't want anything to do with it. So our success story with this client was we were able to clean up her home. I contacted my father who works in construction. He brought his crew out. We cleaned the home for her completely free. She signed up for 24/7 care with us, which is, if you do some math, our starting rate is around $30 an hour times 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you can see how expensive it can get very quickly. We cleaned up her entire house. We bought her all new clothes. We sold her car for her since she couldn't drive, but we fixed it up first so that it wasn't running when we first got there. Because of this story, when we would bring her to church, she would tell all her friends, look what they did for me. You know, like they didn't have to do that. We didn't have to clean her house for her. You know, we do, as home health agencies, we do light housekeeping, but this was like industrial house cleaning. So after the story, we slowly started getting calls. Hi, this is Mary Jo from whatever church in the community. I heard what you did for so-and-so. Can you come take a look at my mom? Maybe she needs some help, you know? So though that one act of kindness, which nobody knew about other than the patient herself, it grew into, we had over, I think it was like 35 direct referrals for care, for service from that one client, which since that event has happened has amounted to about $1.8 million of revenue for the business. So one little act of kindness can always lead you to exponential growth, all right?
Yeah, and then my last question before we open it up to the floor is, what would be your biggest piece of advice for an entrepreneur starting out?
Educating yourself is key. The biggest thing when I talk to anybody that's working under me as a mentor, mentee, is I hear a lot of times, well, I'm really scared, like what happens if this fails? In business, there's this thing called risk and reward. The greater the risk, the greater the reward, right? If you guys go out today and buy a lotto ticket, your risk is what? Low or high?
Low.
Your risk is low, right? You're giving up $2 for a chance of winning millions, right? But in relation, what is your chances of actually winning that? Probably slim to none, right? Yeah, okay. So as you enter into business, you have to calculate your risks, your rewards, and what you're comfortable with losing. When I started my businesses, I was working as a nurse. I'm a single father. I don't know if any of you have any real life experience with anything like that yet, but it is rough, okay? That's another thing, is wait to have children. So as you enter into your life, you make your long-term plans. I think when you're getting started, the biggest thing is saving money, creating a good business plan, creating a good marketing plan, and then taking those to your mentors and saying, how can I improve these? When I started my business, I had only about $20,000 saved up, which seems like a lot of money to a high schooler, but in the grand scheme, that was a drop in the bucket. To get my home health agency even licensed off the ground, it cost $150,000. And that came from me selling my house, my car, everything that I owned, and putting it into a pile of money and saying, all right, I am going out on a limb and I'm going to put up everything that I own for the chance to potentially one day in the far future make a lot more money, right? That's what a lot of us are here for, is making money. I don't pull a salary from any of my businesses. I technically could, but I don't. The money that I make for my living comes from me working at the hospital as a nurse, which I only do 1 or 2 days a week now, but the reason I do that is because everything that comes into my businesses, I turn around and I put it back into the businesses somehow. I give my employees bonuses. I give them raises. I expand the business. I do marketing or whatever I need to do to help that business grow. A lot of new business owners go in and they say, whoo, I made some money, I can live on this. And then they start pulling that paycheck out. And then the business has no room to grow because there's no money left, all right? So my advice to you is to use your mentor as a tool to help you grow. There's this thing that I know my son has a huge problem with it, and most teenagers do. It's called delayment of gratification. Would you rather have $1 now or 100 next week? Okay, well that's every time you guys go to the store and you say, I'm just gonna buy this pack of candy. I'm just gonna buy this soda that I really don't need, but I'm just bored and I want something to drink, you know? So I want you to calculate after a year how much you spent on stupid purchases. All right? I want you to go back in your bank account and calculate how much you spent on stupid purchases. And you'll look and you'll be like, I could have bought a car, you know? It's pretty bad. The Netflix that I log into once a month, how much did I pay for that over a year? My Starbucks coffee, don't get me started on Starbucks, okay? So when you go back and calculate the stupid purchases, and then you, at the end of the year, you're like, I don't have any money to start a business. Well, there went all my money, my little gratification things. I needed that instant gratification, all right? So learning to put aside instant gratification for the long-term goal is probably the best thing you can do for yourself and for your future.
Thank you. So do we have any questions from the audience?
Like, about how long did it take from like your idea to like planning and to actually like pursuing it?
It depends on you as a person. I have a higher risk threshold. So for me, when I started my business, I started it like in January, and I said, you know, I had this idea. By March, I had already filed for the licensures and everything I needed for a business. So I kind of just hit the ground running, you know. I have friends who own businesses that they planned for literally years before they took that step. The biggest thing I could say would be make your plan and then set yourself a deadline and say, all right, I want to start a mobile phlebotomy business. All right, I'm gonna start my research now, but this needs to be done by X time. And then it gives you kind of a deadline to get it done. So that helps a lot of people. Did you have a question?
How did your role as a provider shift when you became primarily a business owner from when you were an ICU nurse? How did your role shift?
The biggest change is not being there as an actual provider. So like I said before, when you're an ICU nurse, you have this kind of mama bear, daddy bear mentality where I am so protective of my patients. I want to do everything for them because you're responsible. But as a business owner, you can't do everything. You physically cannot do everything. So kind of letting go of that and circling back and getting those good people underneath you that can help you with those tasks is absolutely fundamental. Because if you try to do everything yourself, you're going to fail because you can't do everything yourself. And then things are going to start falling behind and you're going to forget about something. So having somebody to check in on you or whatever it may be. So you can see that a lot of times if you look at, or what are you going in for?
I'm sorry?
What are you going for? What are your...
Hopefully a physician.
Physician, okay. So as a physician, are you providing direct care to the patients?
Sometimes.
No, never. Only time you're ever touching a patient is if you're doing an exam or if you're doing a surgery or a procedure. Other than that, you're never in the room. Who's providing the care? The nurses, right? So it's the same aspect. So as a nurse, it was hard for me to take a step back and say, all right, I'm not providing this direct care. I'm letting the people I've hired to do it, but I'm managing that care. And as a physician, that's your job, is to manage the care. I'm writing a prescription or an order for a specific task, a medication, whatever it may be, right? So when you take that step back, you're trusting that the staff that's underneath you is doing it according to your order, because ultimately, who is responsible? The doctor. So, so that's where that shift happens, and you'll see that as you move into a physician. I always suggest, if you're going to become a physician, to take a role as a subordinate first, work as a CNA or as an EKG tech or whatever it may be, so you can learn the struggles that they're going through, so you can have the perspective of both sides. All right. Any other question? Guy with the necklace.
Do you still actually go to patients' houses, or do you just handle like the business aspect of it?
I still do go to houses. I don't really provide as much hands-on care anymore because there's so many people. I have like layers, you know. I go to people's houses to do check-ins. I always look at their calendar. We have a software system that shows us who's going where and when. And I'll just show up at people's houses, and I have a system that I make sure I drop in at least every 3 months to every single client's house, so they can see that I'm there, I'm managing the care, etc. But as far as hands-on care in my businesses, not as much. I do still work in the ICU, providing direct care to patients to keep my skill set up, number one, but I'm also in school to be a nurse practitioner, so I want to make sure I'm keeping that mindset, to further my education.
Has having a kid make your career more difficult to pursue?
Having a kid was the best thing that ever happened to me. It made me grow up. It made me change my focus rather than being eccentric focus to being an eccentric focus. The only thing I wish that I would have done is wait and had that done later. I could have been more mature as a young father. I could have had a more financially stable upbringing for my children. So if I had done it differently, I would have waited until I was a little more fiscally stable and a little more mature, and more into my career. I had my son at 17, so I went into the world as a father. So it was kind of rough. But yeah, let's see.
So you made a comment on buying stupid stuff that could waste your money. Do you have any other tips on how to save money?
Sure. You have to do a self-evaluation. So part of being a leader is not only evaluating your staff, but also evaluating yourself, right? So as leaders, we do what's called audit tools. And you can go in and you can check, how am I doing in the way I'm talking to my subordinates, or how am I doing in this or that? And there's different tools you can look up online. And one of those tools is your fiscal tools, right? So you have to evaluate how you save your money. I know I'm a spender, okay? I see something shiny and I want it now, all right? So the biggest transition for me was learning that delayment of gratification. So the way I started was forcing myself to save money in a way that I couldn't touch it. The way I saved up my $20,000 to start my business in the beginning was opening a bank account at a completely separate bank, putting the address for the statements to my mom's house so I would never see a statement. And then my payroll deductions, I put 25% of my payroll as direct deposit into that account, and I never looked at it. And then after working for a year or two, all of a sudden you have thousands of dollars in there, and you're like, whoa, I didn't spend that on plane tickets to Hawaii because I was bored, So when you do that, you force yourself to save, then all of a sudden you have a little, more room. Other people are a little more mature, and they can say, I'm going to set aside this amount of money, and so you have to do a self-evaluation to see. Yeah.
What did you major in college?
My first major was, what did I start off as? I started off at a liberal arts college. I play cello. I'm a cellist. I started off as music theory, and then I realized that I don't want to be poor forever. So I switched over to biology because that was the only thing available, and that's how I got into kind of the medical field as a biology major.
All right. So we're out of time for questions, but thank you all for being an incredible audience. Your questions were wonderful, and thank you, Colby, for telling your story. And I honestly now understand why it's so important to have a background in the medical field before owning a business in the medical field. So thank you all so much for listening, and thank you, Colby. Can we please give him a huge round of applause?